everyone, Rebecca Lucor again. Welcome to Session 3, Think 30 Youthquake Climate Summit. I'm here today at the beautiful and very sustainable Eden Hall campus at Chatham University in Pittsburgh. Chatham is one of the leading universities in the country when it comes to sustainability and climate action. And you're going to learn more about that later this afternoon. And then we'll take you out to beautiful Boulder to learn what the University of Colorado is doing for sustainability in the classroom and on their campus. And then you're going to get to meet some graduate students who are taking their climate action expertise and applying it firsthand to some of the biggest challenges for some of the world's largest companies. Today is all about education. It's about the programs and the institutions that are doing great work to prepare students like you to be ready for the jobs of the future. And that doesn't always happen just at the university level. You're going to hear from an executive director of an organization called Communitopia, and she's going to tell you about some great curriculum that happens a lot earlier than the college and university level. But I'll let Katie tell you all about that. So enjoy, and I'll see you later today.
Hi, everybody. My name is Katie Modick, and I am the executive director of an environmental nonprofit in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania called Communitopia. Communitopia exists to provide transformative climate change education to youth in our region. So a lot of people wonder, what is transformative education? Transformative education is education that takes our knowledge and our skills and transfers that into action. And we do that around climate change. And so our programs are action-oriented, they are solution-focused, they are place-based, and they are relevant to the students' lives. So before I talk about some of the opportunities for students to get involved in the programs of Communitopia, I want to tell you a little bit about myself and how it is that I landed in the role of executive director. So when I was young, probably like a lot of you, I used to ask myself all the time, am I good enough? Am I good enough? I had an older sister who to this day I still believe is sort of perfect. And I really grew up in my sister's shadow. And I think part of my experience doing that was that I was testing myself all the time to figure out whether or not I was good enough. And one of the things that I learned pretty young is that I liked a challenge, a big challenge that nobody else had done. And I think I was challenging myself to prove to myself that I was good enough. So one of those challenges, one year when I was in my early 20s, I decided to bike across the country. I had a rickety old bike. I took my bike apart, I put it on a plane, and I flew out to California with my bike, and I took a huge bike ride from California all the way to Florida, from the Pacific to the Atlantic. And it was a very hard bike ride. I cried many days. The wind was in my face many days. It rained on me, and it was a huge challenge, but I finished it, and I felt really, really good having finished that big bike ride. Later in my later 20s, I realized I wanted to be a teacher, and I went back to school, and I was a public school teacher for about a decade in classrooms across the United States. So I worked in Florida and Colorado and Texas, and I was a special education teacher. So my biggest job was really to help my students learn how to read and how to write, and they struggled learning how to read and write. And I didn't like how the four walls of the classroom really felt like they were stifling to us sometimes, and it was a challenging space to learn. And so I challenged myself to always get my students out of the classroom and into the world around us, and we would go visit universities and accommodations labs at universities, and I developed mentoring programs for my students to make sure that they had individuals who they could look up to who also had disabilities. And it was a really important challenge and a really transformative part of my own learning about who I am and what I'm meant to do on this planet. So the work of an executive director is very visionary, right? I am trying to understand the community around me, understand the needs of that community, and then take the skill sets that I see in our organization and match those to make the world a better place and to help the organization meet its mission. And so in the case of Communitopia, that mission is to provide those transformative climate change education experiences to young people. There are a handful of challenges that Communitopia sees in the community that we are working to address. And some of those challenges for climate change education in our community include that there are no standards for climate change for teachers. Also, climate change, often there's a lot of climate denierism and misinformation around climate change. And finally, there's a lot of overwhelm. If we don't pair some of the gloom and doom headlines with real opportunities for students to take action, it sometimes creates a feeling of helplessness and depression and anxiety. And so Communitopia designs programs that address all of those challenges and make sure that students feel motivated to take action. And so Communitopia, again, exists to make sure that we are providing transformative climate change educational opportunities that help students plug into real, tangible solutions, designing, developing solutions to climate change that really make their community a healthier and a better place. And so we do this in a handful of different ways. We run programs directly with students. And so I'm going to show you guys. This is one of our climate solution kits. You can get these boxes that are shipped right to students' classrooms or even right to your front door. They're a tool for both educators and for students and parents to use that there's a STEM activity in there, right? So there's a building component, but there's also two really critical action components. So one is an individual action that you can take at home, and one is an action that you can amplify into your community. And so these are tangible, hands-on, ready to go learning opportunities that let students practice taking action on climate change in their own community, and then amplifying that action to take collective action. And so we have 3 kits right now that are hitting the market this month in November when Youthquake is happening. So make sure that you check out our website and you can order a kit there. That's some of our direct student programming. We also run professional development for educators, again, because educators want to teach about climate change. 83% of adults in Allegheny County believe climate change solutions should be taught in schools, but our teachers don't have the resources to be able to integrate that into their curriculum. And so Communitopia runs a climate change teacher fellowship that helps teachers design a solutionary unit of study that they can implement in their classroom. These are some examples of the opportunities and sort of the model of programming that Communitopia has developed. We are focused primarily in the K through 12 education sector at this point in time. And the reason for that is because that is a space that we believe is a robust space for both developing young solutionaries and also doing some of the equity work that we need. We know that climate change disproportionately impacts certain communities, and it's really important that we have the voices of those who are impacted at the table when we're making and designing solutions for our communities. And so schools are a really wonderful place to have the youth voice present, and also a diversity of different youth voices at the table. And so I encourage you guys to definitely check out Communitopia's website, where all of this work is highlighted, and to reach out to me if you have any questions about youth climate action programming for K through 12 schools. And I just encourage you guys to use your problem solving skill sets and all that desire that you have to make your community a better place. Those tools that you have, whatever it is that sort of is pulling at you, that skill set that you were born with, listen to it. It might not be climate action, but for many of you, because climate change is pretty relevant to anybody, any young person's life, climate change will definitely be something that you'll grow up with. And so some of these opportunities that you can join with Communitopia are things that you can transfer into whatever your passions are. So that problem solving skill set is an important skill set for all of us to be developing as we grow older. I wish you the best of luck, and I really hope to connect with you soon. Have a great Youthquake, and hope to see you soon. Bye.
Hi everybody, it's Ben Renwick from Covestro. Welcome back. We're here at Chatham University. This is the Eden Hall campus, and I'm actually here with Lou Leonard. He is the Dean of the Falk School of Sustainability and Environment here at Chatham University, one of the leading schools in the nation on sustainability. So great to be here today, Lou, and thanks for having us here.
Absolutely, so glad you could be here.
Absolutely.
Hey, everybody.
So wanted to start off with a question, just kind of make a connection between Chatham University, give some context to the students as well. What's the connection between Chatham University and this infamous American woman who really sparked the environment movement back in the 1950s?
Yeah, so I'm really glad that you started there with the history, Ben, because the history for Chatham is really an important part of why we're doing what we're doing today and how we do it. So Rachel Carson, class of 29, we were then called the Pennsylvania College for Women.
Okay.
So we were an undergraduate women's only college. We're now an all gender undergrad and graduate university. But Rachel Carson grew up just down the road from where we are today. She grew up in a town that overlooked the Allegheny River, and from a young age she saw the pollution pouring into that river, and it inspired her as a child to build a life that was focused on understanding those connections between nature and what we do as humans and how those things can come back and affect us. So in the mid-1920s, she came to Chatham, Pennsylvania College for Women. She studied as an undergrad. She studied both science and writing. So she had this understanding, this sort of, that the combination of these things could prepare her to do this work of helping people understand the environment and environmental impacts more. She went on to work for the federal government, the Fish and Wildlife Service, and she wrote particularly these two books that really changed the way people understood in the 1950s and 60s, how people understood the environment. So one was called The Sea Around Us. It won the National Book Award in 1952. And the other, her most famous, was Silent Spring. And it was about the impacts of pesticides on our environment. So she got a lot of pushback on this from companies who were producing those chemicals, but it led to a ban on DDT, a very infamous pesticide. And it led to really a sweeping set of environmental laws in the United States and our environmental movement. So she was a bold, brave, world-changing woman. And I think in this age that we're in now, we need more Rachel Carsons.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Lou, for sharing that about the history of Rachel Carson and her impact in how it's transitioned and what you're doing here at the school now, too.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about some of the programs that you have here for sustainability degrees at Chatham University. You guys are one of the leading schools in the nation. You guys are a model and a leader to those around the country, too. So can you talk about some of the programs that you offer here for sustainability degrees?
Absolutely. So we are really a professionally oriented school. So we're oriented towards preparing students to go out and make a difference either in the private sector or the public sector around issues of sustainability. We offer graduate and undergraduate programs. The graduate programs are master's programs, so they're really professionally focused, getting people out into the workforce. We offer undergraduate programs also. In both undergrad and grad, we have degrees in sustainability. So, and within that, you can study urban and energy issues. You can study natural resources conservation. You can study sustainable business. And we also have a graduate program in food studies. So this isn't just a traditional agricultural program or a culinary program. It really is, from soup to nuts, a degree that helps you understand this food system and how it affects our lives. So you learn a little bit about agriculture. You do growing just down the road here on the farm. You understand how to do food and culinary. We have a bread oven right over your shoulder where you learn to do baking, kind of in traditional ways. So, and then on the undergrad side, we have environmental science, food studies, and sustainability with a lot of those same concentrations.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing. It seems like a broad range of different programs that students can get into. So can you talk about some of the graduates who have come through here? What are some places where they're landing and getting a job? What are their careers taking them to?
Yeah, so it's great that you bring that up, because what I find, especially with undergrads and their parents, is they want to know, okay, I like the idea of sustainability. I'd love to have an impact on the environment, but am I going to get a job when I graduate, right? Yeah, so absolutely. I think that it's really powerful. The statistics show that our grad and undergrad programs are graduating, kind of 95 to 100% of our graduates are getting jobs within 6 months. So that's great. Yeah, that's awesome. The nature of these interdisciplinary programs that we have means that students are prepared to do a lot of different kinds of things. So we've got folks who graduate and work for big companies. So we have the brand new head of sustainability for Hertz, the car company, is a Chatham graduate. We've got a sustainability leader for FedEx. We've got sort of a woman who actually started the sustainability program for a company that's based in Pittsburgh, but is a global company called Youthquake, which does water technology. Okay. So she came in as a grad and started their sustainability program. But we also have graduates who are working more as entrepreneurs. So we have a graduate who started his own farm, right? We have a graduate who started her own food business. So we've got that entrepreneurial level too, as well as big companies. And then working for government. So we've got folks who work in the city government here on planning and environmental issues. We got folks that work in the National Park Service at the federal level. And then you got NGOs. So local NGOs, Pittsburgh Park Conservancy, but also global NGOs like World Resources Institute, WRI. So it sort of runs the gamut.
Yeah, it really does. That's cool to see the broad range of where people are landing from a career from government to corporation, starting their business that appeals to entrepreneurship as well. So I think that's really cool. So let's take a break from academia a little bit. Can you talk about the campus in itself? How are you fostering sustainability here on Eden Hall? Can you talk about some of those things?
Yeah, so it's great. I'm so glad that we're able to be outside and you can see some of this campus because it is an amazing place. And I think that Eden Hall is so important in the moment we're in right now about it, as we face environmental and social crises, because I think one of the things that is challenging for folks is you think about the future and it feels scary, right? It's like, what is the future going to be like, and am I going to want to live in it, right? And am I going to really want to then lean into the change that's necessary to get us to a new future? And I think what Eden Hall shows is this future can be beautiful, right? It can be a place that you want to live in, you want to help build. And that helps get people out of this, I think sometimes emotional place where they get stuck, not wanting to engage in the future. So I think the fact that we have this future, we can live in that future today at Eden Hall. We can be inspired by it, we can inspire others. So what does it really look like here? We've got behind us a platinum LEED certified zero carbon building. Beautiful We've got place. Up the floor, up the road, we've got a certified organic farm. And these aren't just things that sit in the background while students study. They are a living learning laboratory where students have jobs working on the farm, operating the buildings. They do internships related to this place. But I think the other thing that's important is because experience-based education is at the heart of what we do. Eden Hall is a platform from which we engage with others in the Pittsburgh area, because Eden Hall is really a laboratory within a laboratory, and that other laboratory is the Pittsburgh area itself, right? A place that was one of the iconic cities for fossil fuel-based development, and a place that's now really trying to lean into that transition, right? So I think we do work here with our students that also partners with others from outside the community, outside of this campus, into the broader community to have an impact. So I think that's really powerful, and I think what that means and what we can show folks is if we can do it here in Pittsburgh, we can do it anywhere, right? And then we can show some of the models that that allow you to have that that future that we all want. Yeah, so.
Absolutely. Great, Lou. Thanks so much for joining us here today to be part of the Think 30 Youthquake event. Thanks so much for your time, and thanks for allowing us to be here on your campus too.
So glad to do it. Bye, everybody.
Yeah, see you guys.
Hello again, everyone. It's me, Angela Wizow, and I am so excited to introduce you to Sharon Collins, who is a professor and former director of the Environmental Studies program at the University of Colorado in Boulder, renowned for its work in advancing sustainability.
Hi, Ange. Great to be here.
Likewise, Sharon. So let's dive right in. Can you tell us a little bit about UC Boulder's commitment to sustainability and climate change and what it offers to its students?
Well, CU Boulder is a fantastic place to learn about and experience critical issues in sustainability and climate change. We have a very high concentration of researchers who study the science of climate change, including how the Earth system works, but as well, we have researchers who study how societies can mitigate or reduce the effects of climate change, as well as exploring strategies for adapting to climate change. So we really do have researchers studying the environment all across campus, in the sciences, of course, but also in the arts and humanities, in media and communication, and in the social sciences like sociology and psychology. It's a really rich environment to study the environment and sustainability, and it all happens right here in this beautiful place where the North American prairies meet the Rocky Mountains.
Love it, love it. And can I just say how much I love your background, Susan? I'm just going to throw it out there and make that.
Thank you.
Say it out loud. And now let's talk a little bit specifically about the environmental studies program at UC Boulder and how you're engaging students in collaborating with communities to combat climate change.
Sure. Well, the environmental studies program offers students exciting opportunities to learn collaboratively alongside experts to address questions related to sustainability and climate change, such as how do we reduce the environmental effects of transportation, for example, or how do we enhance the ability of ecosystems like forests to store carbon? We also provide opportunities for students to collaborate with individuals and organizations in our community. And they work on real world projects, such as one student group worked with an organization that's converting front lawns to vegetable and pollinator gardens, reducing the need for fertilizers and fuels in lawn care. Another student group is working with an organization called the Boulder Watershed Collective, where they're working to inform residents about ways to reduce risk of wildfire in our mountain communities. So these collaborative learning experiences really benefit the students as well as our communities.
That's great. That's great. Can you tell me more about the Earth Leadership Program? That's a very audacious name, by the way. And how did you and your colleagues at UC Boulder come up with the program and what the purpose of it is?
Well, great. The Earth Leadership Program is a training program, and it's really meant to train researchers to do exactly the kind of work we were just talking about, to know how to collaborate with communities and a wide range of stakeholders across all sectors of society. So we train researchers to develop the skills and practices to work with organizations and to work outside the walls of the academy on sustainability and climate change strategies. The program started here in North America, and we are now collaborating with organizations and institutions around the world to identify the needs and gaps for skills in this kind of transdisciplinary or across sector research training.
Okay. Okay. And why would you say collaboration across discipline is so important in solving climate issues? That's the first part. And then how does your program specifically teach students the art of collaboration?
Well, I think that none of us has the knowledge or the ability to address such a complex problem like climate change on our own. We have to listen and we have to learn from people with a wide range of experiences and knowledge types, and to truly understand the problems and the possible solutions to climate change. So at CU Boulder, we emphasize collaboration among students in the classroom, but as I mentioned, we also emphasize collaboration with partners from a wide range of sectors of society. And I truly believe that if we listen and learn, we will develop durable and equitable and sustainable solutions to climate change.
That's great. That's great. I certainly wish I had opportunities like that when I was in school, but that was ages ago, Sharon. Before we sort of, part ways, any final thoughts you would want our students just watching today, to think about, or any final words?
Sure. As I just said, I think it's really important to listen to others, to understand experiences of people across society. And together, I think we can work collaboratively to develop solutions that are equitable, that are long lasting, and that will serve our generation and future generations to come.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sharon at Youthquake. So thank you so much, Sharon, for joining us today at Youthquake and for sharing all the wonderful work that you're doing at UC Boulder.
You're welcome. Great to be here. Thanks, Ange.
my name is Ishrita Pohl, and I'm a high school senior from Dallas, Texas, who is super passionate about the climate movement. So a little backstory about myself. I don't really have a spark or like a single moment that got me interested in climate change. I just grew up in a household with parents who deeply cared about the environment. And on family vacations, I saw firsthand some of the impacts of climate destruction on underprivileged communities. So kind of all of that culminated and motivated me to take action. So I researched a lot of local climate organizations in my area, and I came across the Climate Reality Project, which is a nonprofit international climate organization founded by former Vice President Al Gore. So I joined the Dallas-Fort Worth chapter of that, and when I showed up to the first meeting, I was the only youth member there. Everyone else was much older than me in like their 30s, and I was a little overwhelmed at first, but I've always been really strong about the belief that the climate movement is really intersectional. And it requires a variety of different voices and perspectives contributing to it, including youth, since we are the generation most affected by it. So since then, a lot more youth have come along and joined the chapter. And today I serve as the Youth and Young Professionals Chair of the chapter. And one of the main projects that we do is we host a podcast in which we interview people in kind of unconventional, unique climate careers. So as someone who's starting college applications, and I'm just in the process of figuring out what I want to do with my life, I really wanted to learn about the types of careers and environment, and I knew a lot of my peers were interested in that as well. So in the podcast, we've followed the journey of like a science teacher who's worked in Tanzania with Dr. Goodall, people working on political campaigns, food waste, solar, architecture, pretty much everything. So it's been really beneficial to kind of learn about what's out there. And then just in general, when having conversations with climate deniers, I've learned that, facts and figures don't always convince people. A lot of the times we have to emotionally appeal to people with the help of fine arts. So one of the things that our chapter has done is we actually created a mural that currently hangs in downtown Dallas, which depicts a sustainable version of the Dallas skyline. And so it's sort of like a visual depiction of our hopes and dreams for the city. And it's gotten the attention of a lot of people. It's helped environmental policy pass in the area and even got featured on NPR. So it really shows that the climate movement needs to mobilize the voices of a lot of different types of people from a lot of different backgrounds to really be successful. And I think that's exactly what's happening in Youthquake. So I'm super excited for you guys to be learning about this. And thank you for having me.
Everyone, I'm Cheyenne Schenkel with Covestro. In this session, you've been hearing about how colleagues and universities are building sustainability and climate studies into their academic programs and on their campuses. Now, we want to introduce you to a really cool program for graduate students that is run by the Environmental Defense Fund called the Climate Corps program. Over the last few years, Covestro has had the wonderful opportunity to partner with EDF's Climate Corps program and several of its talented fellows. Their work is helping support us on our journey to become fully circular, both here in the US and in China. We are delighted today to welcome Scott Wood, Director of the Climate Corps program, as well as Barbara Dos Santos, who served as a Climate Corps Fellow this year and now works as a Senior Analyst at the Cadmus Group, which is a consulting firm that works with organizations that want to solve the world's most challenging problems. Thanks to both of you for joining. So Scott, the first question is for you. Can you tell us about EDF's Climate Corps program and how it helps corporations, organizations, and municipalities achieve their sustainability goals? Why did EDF embark on this mission?
Sure. And, first, let me just say thanks to you, Cheyenne, and the whole team there at Covestro for organizing this event. And also a big thank you to everyone who's listening in today. Climate Corps, as Cheyenne mentioned, it's a summer fellowship program, kind of like a specialized internship program where we recruit and place graduate level students into really big companies and other organizations to help them achieve their climate goals and to reduce their impact on climate. And, we do this by recruiting really bright and passionate students and then training them on how to work effectively within a large organization and then supporting them throughout the summer as they actually conduct their work. And, the work itself spans all sorts of different topics, but with the common purpose of driving down greenhouse gas emissions and helping to solve the climate crisis. And, as for why EDF created this program, in a nutshell, it essentially boils down to the fact that in 2008, when the program was created, there was a report that was published that showed just a tremendous amount of energy savings and cost savings potential that companies had access to but weren't taking advantage of. There's about $1 trillion that that companies could save by improving energy efficiency and other things. And so, EDF saw a real opportunity to, work with those companies, take really talented business students and place them with companies to help identify energy saving projects that could cut costs, which companies really like to do, and also help them improve their environmental impact.
Yeah, that's a great mission. So now over to Barbara. How did you find out about EDF's Climate Core program, and why did you want to get involved in it?
Yeah, so like Scott, I really want to say thank you to Covestro and to all students watching this. It's really exciting to be able to share this with you. And, I was actually doing my PhD when I heard about Climate Core, but I knew that I didn't want to be in academia. So I was exploring other opportunities, and I was studying climate policy at the time. A good friend of mine had just finished his Climate Core, and then he told me how great he was and how a great experience it was. And I thought it would be, for me, a really good experience to get some work experience outside academia and actually making a difference at the same time. So I applied. I actually didn't get in the first time I applied, but then the second time I applied, I got in, and it was an amazing experience.
That's great. Yeah. So Scott, back to you. How many entities has EDF worked with, and what has been the impact of this program?
Yeah, so we've been running the program for 14 years. We'll be going into our 15th season in 2022. And, over that time, we've placed about 1,200 students with more than 500 different organizations. And, that includes companies that we're all familiar with, like Google and Pepsi and Covestro, of course, and then cities like, New York and Houston and Boston, where I live, and then also nonprofits like the Red Cross and Girl Scouts of America and the Mayo Clinic. And over the program's history, those fellows have identified about $1.6 billion in energy saving opportunities and have made some really important contributions to helping organizations advance their climate and sustainability programs and strategies.
Yeah, so someone that helped one of these companies, like you were just talking about, was Barbara. So Barbara, can you tell us about your recent project with Whirlpool? What kinds of challenges or problems are you helping companies address, and what kind of impact are you seeing from your work?
Yeah, so as a Climate Core fellow, I was placed at Whirlpool, the appliance company. And I think many people doesn't know that, but it's a really large multinational company. It has about 70,000 employees in 15 countries. So my job was to help them identify what are the climate policy trends that they will be seeing in the future, and also make a forecast of how much risk, financial risk, that actually poses to the company. And then after making this calculation, identifying all the policy trends that we're seeing, I also proposed strategies and recommendations of how they can mitigate the policy risks that they were facing. And it was very interesting because those are things that are helping them not only to get better appliances and more efficient appliances in people's homes, but also a lot of those risks are actually to the employees, like people who work in the factories in Chicago and in India who are severely exposed to climate change risks, such as water scarcity, heat waves, cold waves. So they are also able to make their employees' lives better. So I think it's really interesting how the work that I did affects people's lives in their homes, but also their lives in the work, and at the same time cutting carbon emissions and making our lives more efficient. So it was a really interesting experience, and I love the work.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. So Scott, back to you. Barbara mentioned that she was in climate policy, which is a really interesting area. But to expand on that too, can you tell us about the students who typically get involved with EDF Climate Core? Are they all environmental scientists?
No, I mean, in fact, actually very few, I would say, are environmental scientists. But, early on in the program, all of our fellows used to be business students. So they were in MBA programs. But now, and Barbara is a great example of this, our fellows come from a really wide variety of graduate programs. And that includes things like environmental management and corporate sustainability programs, and still business programs. We do have MBA students involved in the program, public policy programs, and a whole lot more. And I think one of the really kind of great things about the field of sustainability is that so many different skills are needed. And we need scientists to help us understand the problems and the solutions. We need advocates and policy experts to help inform and engage the public and craft new rules and approaches to make change. And we especially need all of you who are listening, that next generation of climate leaders to use your voice and your passion to push the rest of us in the right direction, and really to hold people in power accountable. So again, just really commend you all for joining and listening in, and wish you all the best as you kind of move forward in that journey.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it, that you can really get involved with climate and sustainability issues from any angle and with a multitude of different, educational experiences and college degrees. But I do have one last question for you, Barbara. So what advice would you share with the high schoolers listening today about getting involved in solving the climate area?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would double down on what Scott really just said, that you can be a climate leader in pretty much any profession. You can be a climate leader in marketing. You can be a climate leader in journalism. You can be a climate leader in business and engineering. Even in acting, you can be a climate leader in acting. Like Leo is our good example for that. So there is just so many opportunities. So my advice for you is, if you want to be a climate leader doing what you love. Because I think there are plenty of opportunities, and ask questions, talk to people, reach out to people on LinkedIn, learn about their experience. I think it's really good for you to learn what are your options. You have a lot. So learn about them and find what you really love.
Yeah, that's great that people can, follow along with what they're most interested in and still always be able to tie that back to making an impact in climate and sustainability in some way. But thank you both so much for being here with me today. It was awesome speaking to both of you.
Great pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Wow, thank you so much to our final session speakers, Katie and Lou and Sharon, Ashrita, Scott, and Barbara. Thanks again to everyone who participated this week. It's been an amazing Youthquake. My biggest takeaway from these 3 sessions is just how committed everyone is to making real change on climate. Whether it's rescuing food headed to the landfill, or growing it in ways that require less water and fewer resources, or finding new ways to get carbon out of the air and the ground and make new markets for it. It's really something, so many different approaches that are having such tremendous impacts. We hope it inspires all of you to play your part and to do more. Before we say goodbye, one last time, just a quick reminder that Friday, November 5th is COP26 Youth and Education Day. It's your opportunity for your voices to be heard and your hopes and your concerns on climate with world leaders throughout social media. So use the hashtags Think30 and COP26 to be heard around the world. Please do it. It's your opportunity to take action.